EMP series, Night 1, The Hike. I walked to the end of the road where it dead ends and into the adjacent woods. From there it was a few hundred yards down the trail to a side road that led to the train tracks. When I got to where I wanted to pick up the tracks, I saw a group of people at a large bonfire burning stuff that they were pulling out of a building in the parking lot. The area was home to a medium-sized shopping center, and it was obviously being looted. There were people running out of the grocery store with full shopping carts of food and fighting in the lot with others for the food they had just stolen. It was mayhem. I backed up into the woods and went back on the short trail that led to the road I had just come down. I immediately changed my plan and decided to walk up the road about a half a mile to another trail that went for about a mile and would come out on the same track further up out of the city where it was more rural. I was having second thoughts about my decision to use the train tracks and hoped that it would be clear once out of the city. When I reached my new point of entry to the tracks, I was still a little apprehensive. As I sat in the shadows carefully watching the tracks, which were lit by moonlight, and the adjacent trail, which was partially lit, I decided to take neither. At the bottom of a small bank right off of the trail, there was a river, actually more of a large brook. On the other side, there was no trail, but the woods were fully obscured in the shadows. I knew it would take longer, but I decided to walk along the bank in the woods, just inside the tree line, keeping the tracks and the trail in view, but myself hidden. I walked for a ways until I came to a point where I had to leave the track. I would have to cross the main road and enter the soccer field park, which then would lead me into the state park. This leg of my route would be the longest and most challenging due to the fact that I was traveling up in elevation significantly while in the state park. I carefully watched the road for a while before deciding it was safe to cross. After doing so, I walked through the soccer park, skirting around the fields, staying in the shadows as much as possible. I hadn't seen or heard anyone since the tracks behind the shopping center. As I walked up the trail through the state park, I heard it long before I could see it. There were people talking quietly, and the crackle and snap of what I believed to be a fire. Within a couple hundred feet, I got my first whiff of the fire. The voices had ceased, and just then I heard someone come out of the woods onto the trail behind me. Before I could spin around, I heard the hammer cock and the voice say, "Don't move a muscle, or I swear I'll kill you." I froze as instructed, and he moved around to face me on the trail. I could see his hand was shaking slightly, and he was holding what appeared to be a .38 or a .357 revolver. I said, "Please don't shoot. I'm no threat to you." Then his wife appeared on the trail, and she zip-tied my hands together in front of me while the shaky hand held the revolver on me. Together we walked as instructed, up to where the fire was. There they had a small camper van. They'd been camping there illegally when the grid went down. He questioned me, and I explained that I was just trying to get back to my wife, who I believed was stranded at her place of work. I didn't feel the need to be completely honest with him about where she was, but honest enough in my story that he would believe it. This seemed to be the first sign that they didn't mean me any ill will. He told me that his wife was out hiking when the power went down in the van. He tried to call her, but quickly realized his cell phone was dead as well. They were separated for most of the day, and so he sympathized with me, and I could see his wife even had a thread of compassion. They went off and spoke quietly for several minutes. When they returned, they asked if I was carrying any guns. I had the .45 inside my waistband holster, out of sight. the P95 9mm in the side pocket of my ruck, and the Mini 14 folded up in my ruck as well. I also had the 12 gauge under my arm inside my jacket, all out of sight. I felt stupid for being so heavily armed, yet subdued by one man with a revolver. Having had the element of surprise, and getting the drop on me on the trail served him well. I answered him by simply saying no. Then he asked, "Where are you planning to sleep tonight?" I told him I was traveling at night to stay out of sight of people and didn't plan on sleeping till I found my wife. Then I said, "All I want is to be able to pass through peacefully." They looked at each other, and she nodded. He looked back at me and said, "Go ahead." I walked quickly up the trail and out of sight. Wow, my heart was pumping, and I felt a renewed quickness in my step.